Hey, what's going on, guys? What's happening? YouTube, you guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about Aunt Jemima syrup and pancake mix being changed over and rebranded after 131 years to the Pearl Milling Company. And what you're looking at right here is kind of the new branding. Let me know what you guys think about this new branding. Drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. I'll tell you what I think. Just looking at it, it looks like a dollar store generic brand. I'm not a huge fan of Aunt Jemima syrup. It's not even syrup. It's literally not even syrup. It's corn syrup, which is garbage and pretty much poison to our bodies. But the pancake mix isn't half bad. But I know a lot of people, when they're shopping for syrup, it's like, if that's what your parents bought as a kid or that's what your grandma bought as a kid, it's just kind of the packaging is familiar to you and you just go ahead and grab it. So not only do I think a lot less people will be buying Aunt Jemima syrup and Aunt Jemima products moving forward because the packaging isn't what they recognize, but just looking at this, let me know what you guys think from like a marketing and advertising, a branding perspective. Pearl Milling, there's nothing personalized about it. There's no person on it. There's no character behind it. And also just the look of it. Well, they did kind of keep similar fonts and colors to the original Aunt Jemima. It doesn't look like Aunt Jemima. It doesn't remind me of Aunt Jemima. And to me, this just looks like another dollar store brand. So I thought in today's video, it'd be interesting to look at this from a couple different perspectives. One, just from like a branding, graphic design, logo, marketing, advertising perspective. What do you guys think of the new packaging? I also wanted to get into a little bit of a lot of kind of the wokeness of a lot of corporations. Uncle Ben's Rice I'm not sure if they're going to be renaming it or if they're just going to be taking Uncle Ben, the black man, off of the packaging. But there's going to be a rebranding going on with that one. Cream of Wheat is taking the black man off of the packaging. I think it was a while back that Land O'Lakes took the Indian girl in a canoe off of their packaging. And then another one, the Washington Redskins, I believe. I don't really follow football, so let me know if this actually happened or not. But I know a while back there was talk of changing the Washington Redskins into the Washington football team, which seems like a super uncreative name, branding. And I'm pretty sure that ultimately wound up going through. I think I did a Google search just before making this video, and I think they are called the Washington football team now. What is their logo, right? Like, is the logo just a football? Like, there's no character, there's no mascot behind it. That one struck me as really odd, right? Like, NFL teams are, very into branding. They have multi-million dollar ad budgets, marketing teams to kind of handle their branding and stuff like that. And that's the best that they could come up with is quote unquote the Washington football team. Like, are we so woke as a society and a culture that we can't even have a mascot or a real team name because God forbid somebody is offended by it? And before we kind of get into this story, one of the things I wanted to talk about, here's something to think about. So Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, right? And a lot of the media is owned by like big media conglomerates, and a lot of the media is also owned by other corporations in the food space and other spaces. But if you look, Jeff Bezos of Amazon owns the Washington Post. Here's what's kind of weird about that. If there's some story going on about Amazon, can we trust the Washington Post to cover the story in an unbiased way, even if it's unflattering to Amazon and unflattering to Jeff Bezos, if that newspaper is also owned by essentially Amazon and Jeff Bezos? Like, these relationships between corporations and media companies seem kind of weird because the media is in a lot of ways supposed to kind of call out companies to report in an unbiased way. And if these companies are owned by Amazon, Walmart, whoever else, like, can we really trust them to report the news and report on some of these companies in an unbiased way? I really don't think so. Here's another thing, I don't know if you guys notice this, but when it comes to like woke culture and things like that, I feel like the media pushes one narrative, right? Which is like everybody should be offended by Cocoa Krispies because there's a monkey on the packaging, and everybody should be offended by Aunt Jemima syrup and Uncle Ben's rice. And the black community doesn't seem to be offended by it, at least not the majority. It seems like woke white people are the ones kind of pushing this, and it seems to be a silent majority. A silent, I'm completely misspeaking. It seems to be a loud minority, and when I say minority, I'm not talking about color or nationality. When I talk about a loud minority. I'm talking about a small group of crazy people who get upset by everything, right? I think there's a lot of people out there who just want to be upset by stuff. They're miserable and they want to make other people miserable. They want to ruin all the fun. And I don't think the black community really had an issue with any of these products. The black people in my life who I know didn't seem to have an issue with these products. Prior to making this video, I did a quick YouTube search on this, and there's a number of black or African American people making videos talking about how stupid this renaming is and how ugly the new branding is and what a crappy job that they wound up doing. So who is it exactly that's outraged by Aunt Jemima syrup? Maybe some leftist woke people. More than anything, I think it's the media kind of trying to push that we should all be offended by this. But it's kind of interesting when you run into people in your normal everyday life, it seems like most people are kind of like normal and logical and level-headed and don't get triggered and upset by these little things. And so it's really weird when like the media narrative or the mainstream narrative is pushing one idea, and people in your everyday life and people that you overhear talking at the coffee shop or the bar, everybody seems to kind of find this stuff stupid. And so you kind of got to wonder, like, who's pushing this idea? And here's why I think corporate America, large corporations are so into kind of wokeness, is because if you look at companies like Amazon and Walmart, there are some real problems with these companies, right? Like Amazon doesn't treat their workers very well. There's workers committing suicide. I think a year or two back, we had the story about how Amazon workers were peeing in soda bottles because the productivity requirements were so high that they weren't allowed to go to the bathroom. Walmart pays better than some companies out there, but I mean, let's be honest, they don't necessarily pay a living wage, and the pay isn't great. A lot of these companies, Walmart tries to keep people as part-time employees. They only give them part-time hours because they don't want to have to either pay them more, they don't want to pay overtime, and they don't want to have to provide benefits. So they try to keep people as part-time workers. Now, all of these things are kind of societal issues, right? Because if you don't pay somebody a living wage, ultimately you and I, the taxpayer, wind up having to subsidize their health care, give them food stamps, subsidize their lives in other ways. And it's like, really, shouldn't their employer, if they work full-time, pay them enough to live? Like, I really shouldn't have to pay for their medical care because their employer doesn't want to pay them enough. So there are a lot of problems and a lot of societal problems caused by companies like Walmart and Amazon. But if you get people triggered about what characters are on cereal boxes or pancake syrup, you can kind of distract from those issues and push the story and push people's attention to essentially non-issues. Here's kind of an unrelated one, but kind of a funny thing. Jeff Bezos was really outspoken about we should have, about mail-in voting. Jeff Bezos was a big supporter of mail-in voting for the 2020 election. But what's really interesting is when Amazon wanted to vote on whether Amazon should unionize or not, Jeff Bezos was insisting that it be in-person voting, and he said mail-in voting would lead to fraud, right? So you can't have it both ways. Either mail-in voting leads to more fraud, or it doesn't. But there's some hypocrisy when Jeff Bezos is pushing mail-in voting for the 2020 election, but then when it comes to his very own company voting on unionizing, he doesn't want mail-in voting. It's just not consistent. But my point here is it's a lot easier for the Walmart family or Jeff Bezos to get people riled up about syrup and distract people with syrup, all the while not talking about how they pay their workers, how they treat their workers. So it's a very easy distraction, right? Amazon, Walmart can give $10 million, $20 million, $50 million to BLM and, kind of shift the narrative that way and shift everybody's attention that way. And it kind of takes the focus off of them and how they treat their workers and how they pay their workers. And I think that's a big part of why we see both the media and a lot of large corporations pushing this woke culture that, your neighbor, your mom, your dad, your coworker, most normal people don't really see or don't really get offended by. This article comes to us from the New York Times. Aunt Jemima has a new name after 131 years, the Pearl Milling Company. Quaker Oats announced it would drop the name of Aunt Jemima last summer after the killing of George Floyd and the widespread protests over racial inequality. So here's another interesting thing, right? Does Aunt Jemima in some of these products have some racist origins? Like the Aunt Jemima, I believe way, way, way back in the day in the 1880s was like a minstrel character. That's racist. In the early Aunt Jemima advertising, Aunt Jemima was like really dark, almost kind of had blackface. Her features were exaggerated. that was kind of racist. Over the years, I think in like the early 1900s, again in 1930, again in 1950, again in the 70s or 80s, over the years, Aunt Jemima and even Uncle Ben and a lot of these characters were kind of updated and made a little, each time made a little bit less racist, a little bit less racist, a little bit less racist. But what you got to ask yourself is, if Aunt Jemima is such an offensive brand, such an offensive character, why did it take until 2020 to get rid of it? And should we really be patting PepsiCo on the back for being like super woke and progressive when, they could have very easily made this change in the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s. If this is so offensive that it had to be changed, we have to ask, why did it take so long to be changed? Personally, I don't think it's that offensive. I know a lot of people say, Rules for Rebels, man, you're a white straight man. Like, you don't have a dog in this fight. You don't get an opinion. I don't really agree with that, but fair enough. But even if you ask most black people, weren't offended by Aunt Jemima. And you could even make the argument that you're kind of taking away representation in television shows and movies. We want kind of all colors, all nationalities, all religions, etc., represented equally. We want, everybody's kids to be able to see somebody like them on the screen. And here, essentially, we're just taking black people off of products. This is, we now have 3 or 4 less black people in the grocery store. And if you look at the modern, logo character of Aunt Jemima, there's no exaggerated features. She's dressed nicely. She's got nice teeth. She's a pretty looking woman. There's really nothing racist or offensive about that. And you're just kind of taking representation away from black people on products. Let's continue on with the story. It has been a staple of American breakfast tables for more than a century, but has long faced criticism that its name and likeness are rooted in racist imagery. Now Aunt Jemima has a new name, the Pearl Milling Company. And again, I really want to stress from you guys, what do you guys think about the new branding? Like, there's nothing... I'm trying to think, when it comes to branding, characters are often good because people can, people make much more of a connection to a character, whether it be an animal, a person, a cartoon character, much more so than they do like a random name. And to me, there's very little connection to the Pearl. Like, what does Pearl Milling even mean? It just seems like a very generic name, whereas like Aunt Jemima, I got this warm woman on the package staring back at me. In an announcement on Tuesday by PepsiCo, which owns Aunt Jemima's parent company, Quaker Oats, the pancake mix and syrup line formally began rebranding itself and moved one step closer to permanently abandoning its 131-year-old name. And here's an interesting thing. I've heard that eBay isn't allowing the sale of old Aunt Jemima stuff. I did, however, see a lot of people are selling syrup, pancake mixes, etc. with Aunt Jemima and her face on the packaging on eBay for anywhere from $20 to $50. And these are products that you can buy for $2, $3, $4. So there potentially is a hustle opportunity here to run out to Walmart, Target, your local grocery store, buy up all the Aunt Jemima products and try to sell them on eBay. Although realize that, eBay does seem to be kind of cracking down on this type of stuff, which is really odd because eBay actually allows the sale of old like Americana advertising that's like very, very racist with black characters, exaggerated faces, minstrel characters. eBay allows the sale of that stuff, but seemingly takes issue with Aunt Jemima products, which, to me aren't really racist. Here's another interesting thing just about advertising and consumerism. There's a huge collectible market for all different types of like historical advertising, right? Like people collect Wheaties boxes with the characters on them. A lot of people are into like old tobacco and cigar boxes and things like that, like collecting the advertising. And I kind of get it. Some of that stuff is kind of cool, but like, what does that say about how consumeristic, I know consumeristic probably isn't even a word. What does that say about what a consumer society we are that, people value and collect advertising memorabilia? Let's see. The new name comes from the milling company in St. Joseph, Missouri that pioneered the self-rising pancake mix that became known as Aunt Jemima, according to PepsiCo, which said the rebranded products would arrive in stores in June. So, okay, I guess that's where the name comes from. The change has been in the works since last June after the killing of George Floyd catalyzed widespread protests over racial injustice and a nationwide reckoning over symbols of the South and their meaning. Several large food companies came under fire for using racial stereotypes, including Quaker Oats, which said it would drop the Aunt Jemima name, redesigning its packaging, and pledged $5 million to support of the black community. As far as I know, they haven't done anything to support the black community. This money hasn't been given, nor have they given any details on how they're going to support the black community or what they're going to spend this money on. This is largely just kind of a PR thing. And also, It's interesting. This article talks about a reckoning and a widespread calling for racist brands to go away. Who was it that was calling for this? Black people didn't call for Aunt Jemima to go away. I really didn't hear any widespread call for Aunt Jemima to go away besides from the company itself and maybe the media pushing that narrative. Let's see here. The company unveiled a redesigned website for its line of Aunt Jemima products on Tuesday, saying it was the start of a new day. Last June, PepsiCo and the Quaker Oats company made a commitment to change the name and image of Aunt Jemima, recognizing that they do not reflect our core values, the company said on its website. Products with the Aunt Jemima name will continue to be available until June, but without the picture of Aunt Jemima's character's face, according to PepsiCo, which said in a news release that the company sought input on a new name. And I was at Target yesterday, and I did notice a lot of the Aunt Jemima syrups no longer have the picture of the character of Aunt Jemima on them, although I did find and ultimately wind up buying a small little thing of like instant pancake mix that still had the name on there. I was thinking about selling it on, throwing it up on eBay and seeing if I get $25 for it, and if so, I'll go clear off the shelves and buy some more. Let's see. Throughout the effort that led to the new Pearl Milling Company name, Quaker worked with consumers, employees, and external cultural and subject matter experts and diverse agency partners to gather a broad perspective and ensure the new brand was developed with inclusivity in mind. Like I wouldn't call Pearl Milling inclusive. I wouldn't call it. I would call it boring, and so boring that it can't be divisive. But I wouldn't call it inclusive in the sense that it actually brings people together. I was watching a video by one guy, and he said, I think Master P has been getting into the kind of the food products category, and I think he's got something Uncle P rice or something like that. They were like, why not put Master P on it, or bring in Puff Daddy and call it Diddy Cakes? But I think it would have been better to bring in some positive person from the Black community and kind of highlight and support and celebrate them as being the person on the package. But it seems that everybody's so scared of offending somebody that it's easier just to go with a generic name, which is kind of similar to what we saw with the quote-unquote Washington football team, which is just kind of boring. There's a YouTuber who's got a channel called Awaken with JP who does funny videos, and he talks about cancel culture getting so extreme that it winds up canceling all culture, and there's no fun, there's no creativity, there's no nothing because somebody's offended by everything. And I think in a sense, that's kind of what we're seeing here is let's just kind of dumb down and boring down everything so much to the point that nobody can be offended by anything. Let's see. Jamal Green, a civil rights advocate and former mayoral candidate in Chicago, said on Twitter on Tuesday that the change has been long overdue. 130 years ago, two white men created Aunt Jemima syrup. Mr. Green said, took a black slave archetype and made her the face of their syrup for profit. Today that ends. Aunt Jemima is finally being replaced. Those white men made billions appropriating blackness and hopefully rotting in hell. On the Aunt Jemima website, photos of the pancake mix and syrup's new packaging were unveiled on Tuesday. They feature a rendering of a mill with a water wheel and use the same red and white and yellow color scheme. Both the pancake mix box and the syrup bottle included a label that says, new name, same great taste, Aunt Jemima. So if we're getting rid of Aunt Jemima, why are we still referring to Aunt Jemima? That seems weird. In addition to the rebranding, the newly established Pearl Milling Company also said on Tuesday that it was making a $1 million commitment to empower and uplift Black girls and women. The money is in addition to $400 million 5-year investment to support Black businesses and communities and increase Black representation at PepsiCo, the company said. Noli Rooks, an author and a professor at Cornell University whose work explores race and gender, said in an email on Tuesday night that there were additional steps the company could make. I think one good use of these funds might be to support a Black woman-led agency that they could hire to consult with them going forward to ensure they have good advice about their branding and advertising plans, Dr. Rook said of the $1 million. The Aunt Jemima character has roots in a 19th century minstrel song that expressed nostalgia for the antebellum South. Quaker Oats replaced the kerchief on Aunt Jemima's character's head with a plain headband in 1968 and added pearl earrings and lace to the collar in 1989. Last September, Mars Food announced that it was changing the name of its Uncle Ben's rice product to Ben's Original, and that it would also remove the image of the older Black man smiling from the box. The parent company of Cream of Wheat also said last September that the Black chef would no longer appear on its packaging. So this was Uncle Ben's old packaging. They're removing the black men and calling it, calling it Mr. Ben's rice or whatever. Cream of Wheat is also removing the black chef too. So it looks like that's the end of that article. I was curious to see if we had comments. We don't have comments because most people would probably kind of call out how silly this is. Let me know your guys' thoughts on kind of this whole issue. Is this name and branding a name and branding that should have been changed in the first place? What do you think about the new packaging? Is this cool packaging? Is it kind of a nice switchover that still retains some type of connection to the original brand with the colors? Does this look like garbage branding and a dollar store brand to you? Curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And then let me know what you think about, a lot of these corporations' motives behind embracing woke culture so much. Like, are they really good at heart and they want to do a good thing? Or is this to kind of change the narrative to non-issues that are easy to kind of change and throw some money at and look like a good guy, while not really changing any of the real societal or core issues that society should have with their brands, their companies, and how they treat their workers? Would love to hear from you guys on all these topics, so go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button below. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.